Hello and welcome again to A Spot of Positivity. And this is my part two of my crazy crisis of February 2021 or 2021, I should say. No tea for me today because this is like midnight. I promised you a thing today and I'm kind of going against my principles and being a bit driven to do this. My husband said, "Yeah, just do it. You said you'd do it. And thought, well, I don't have to, but I might as well do that. And it keeps the story kind of alive for me. And so I also know then where I left off. And I think where I left off yesterday when I started telling you the story was somewhere when I was getting ready to take off to back to the hospital. We had packed our things. So we'd spent kind of a funny night. For those who don't just join me this day and didn't see me yesterday, I'm telling the story of our son who ended up in the hospital with a diabetic coma out of the blue, and it was quite a surprise. And so I just spent the first day, my first little 10-minute video yesterday, just talking about the surprise of that. And rushing him to emergency, and then he got taken by ambulance to another city, which is our capital city in Cyprus, Nicosia, and how he ended up there. Now, that was a kind of hard first night. We had left him at the hospital, and we didn't really know what was going to go on with him. And meanwhile, somebody, a friend from church, really nice couple, had offered us their Airbnb for us to stay in if we needed to in the city. So that kind of it was a really nice thing. And my husband was like nearly crying when he heard that. Really, really happy. So we got our stuff packed, and it was kind of hard to know what to pack because it's weird packing for an undetermined number of days, and what do you need and what do you not need and all that sort of thing. And also, we're in the middle of this pandemic, which is crazy. So anyway, packed our stuff, and I think we weren't leaving early enough for my husband, but I just wanted to make sure I had everything with me. And I thought, well, really, we're not going to be rushing back and forth. I mean, I think to North American, which I know I am, but I haven't been there for a long time, 40 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever it is, doesn't seem like a long way away, but we knew we wouldn't be jumping back and forth, so I wanted to have everything I needed. Anyway, I got dropped off at the hospital, and my son, that was not in the hospital, and my husband went off and got something to eat, and I ended up, now I knew where to go and everything, and I ended up at the hospital again. Now, I had met a lady the day before, the one who told me about the babies and how everybody's a baby, and that was really sweet. And there she was again, and I had a nice chat with her again, and she had a little daughter there, was 14 years old, and told me a little about her story, and I ended up, there I was with him. I remember I was wearing a little leather jacket, and the reason I remember this is because I went into the ward. There's David, and he was slightly coming to a little bit, but he was really super agitated. There was a really nice doctor in there, and her name was Dr. Charis, which is like Karis, which is Grace, and she's really nice, lovely doctor, and she told me a little bit what was going on with the diabetes, and she just told me a little bit about how first of all, that had nothing to do with his diet. And I remember she said, David's slim. And I thought, oh, he'd love to hear someone calling him slim right now, because sometimes he feels a bit, sometimes he feels insecure like anyone does. Anyway, uh, I started to feel really woozy, and I thought, what is going on? I was really um, hot, and just has a wave of hot come over me, which my friend calls tropical moments. But anyway, had a major tropical moment, and I went and sat down. That's why I remember the leather jacket. Well, it's warm inside the IC unit. um, and so I sat down. They gave me like a bowl in case I was going to be sick. I wasn't sick, but I felt really awful, like really awful, and I could hardly get up. I thought, this is something really wrong with me. My son's in a coma, and here I'm like not even able to kind of function. And I had eaten a bit, not very much that morning, but not like eaten nothing. I'd had something. I'd had a banana. I had a few things, well, much more than a banana. But anyway, I couldn't be fainting in the ICU. So I put my hand, like my head down, and I was like, this cannot happen. This is not right. And I was like going, no, to my body, not having anything like this happen. Anyway, it felt very wrong for a moment, and then it kind of passed. And I was able to go. I said, I need to leave for a few minutes. I'm going to have to come back. So I managed to get out of there. I went to the machine, and I bought myself a Kit Kat, and I ate the whole thing, and I felt better. I couldn't have blood sugar issues like that. Anyway, I don't usually have that. I have felt faint once, and it was like about 3 or 4 years ago. So this was really, really, really weird. Anyway, that's fine. That went, the relief of that afterwards was so amazing. So David, I think it was that day they just sedated him a bit because he was not really ready. He was waking a bit kind of confused, and he didn't really wake up completely. So they sedated him because he was just not coming fully awake. So I was going to say, they said at one point, does he understand Greek? And I said, not really. So that's one reason maybe they looked at me. They looked at him. He looked at them so funny when they were all speaking Greek to him. And yeah, he doesn't speak very much Greek, like very little. So that was how that went. I got picked up by my husband and taken back to the flat we were staying in, which was really nice. And we cooked something. I don't know what we had to eat. Chris went in the evening. My husband went in the evening. The visiting hours were like from basically 11 to 1:30, and then 4 to 6, and then 7:30, 7 to 10. And you were allowed to have one parent in. So the mom could go and leave and the dad could go. So you couldn't just have like both at the same time. So it was one or the other with us. And like really you were on there, like you couldn't just stay all the time because things happen in the ICU, and sometimes they have the staff changeover and all that kind of thing. So you have to kind of go when they say go, and yeah, that was okay. You just have to do what they say, which is fine. In the meantime, they'll get a COVID test. Oh, I had the sweetest experience when I went and got my COVID test. So, right kind of off the property of the hospital is a big church, big Greek Orthodox church, and I guess they had a kind of hall thing beside the church, and that's where the COVID tests were taking place. And you'd go in there, you'd queue up, and then you wait outside in the courtyard for your result, and they call your name, and then you get your result and all that kind of thing. So I walked in there. They said, did you not get a COVID test yesterday? And I said, no, no one asked me to do that. You need to get one today. So I went there, and I got in, and they had this wonderful grand piano. So I said to the guy who was registering my details, I said, oh, it's a piano. I love pianos. I love to play piano. He said, oh, go and play the piano. I said, well, I won't really do that. This is kind of not the place or whatever for that. And he said, do you have any symptoms? And I said, no, I don't have any symptoms. My son is in hospital, and I'm just here because of that. And I said, he said, what happened? And I said about this thing with David, and he looked at me and he said, it's going to be okay. And those words went right into my heart. And then he caught himself. He said, well, we hope so. And I know, okay, you don't want to give anyone false hope, but the damage had already been done in the way that I really felt encouraged, and it just felt like those words were right for me in that moment. It was so amazing. And I was lifted up, and I felt okay, and it was going to be okay. So I left that place, and I don't know exactly how the events all unfolded. Anyway, Chris went to the hospital after I came back to the flat, and he had a good evening with David. So it's like we kind of tag teamed. I did the days and Chris did the nights. And in Cyprus right now, well, at that point we had a curfew of 9 o'clock, but we had a special letter from the hospital to say that we were allowed to stay out later because our son was in hospital. So it's not like it's a heartless rule, the curfew. It was, I think, partly to keep people from kind of losing control in the evenings, getting drunk and being around too many other people, or whatever, just staying out late. So we didn't feel too bad about that, and it was kind of nice to have that break from that. And off I went to Greek class. I won't say my heart was completely in Greek class, but it was a good, some people said a good distraction. I knew I needed to keep up with it unless I was to quit entirely, so I just went with it and I gave myself permission to not be perfect in Greek class because my son was in a coma and who knew what was going to happen. So anyway, that was the end of the second day, and it went okay. And there's something I gotta say, when Chris came home, even that night from being with David, having been with him, even though he wasn't awake, there's something that was encouraging and okay about it. And that's all I can say. And meanwhile, we're getting lots of wonderful messages from people to say they're praying for us and thinking of us and all that kind of thing. So really, really encouraging. Anyway, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that as much as it can be enjoyed. And I hope you have a lovely day today. Thanks for listening.